Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sellik the Thunder podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Fitzsimons. I'm joined today by Ryan McGinley as we do something a little bit different. We're not in the studio. We're not even pre-recorded on Zoom. We're actually live for a change. We've not been live since we did a phone in the past. We're not quite doing a phone in today. They will come in the future because I need to implement them back into the series. But we are live nonetheless. We'll get your comments involved throughout the stream as we talk about what has been another whirlwind week in the life of a Celtic fan. Right, well, this one's just starting. It's Monday today, so we've still got a bit of time to see how this week goes. But in terms of last week, another whirlwind week, Ryan, and you're here to sit alongside me and debunk it all. How are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind week. Obviously, we had the international break last week. I'm glad to get that over with and back to Celtic. And then we can't have the game before the madness that happened the couple of days before with Don McKay. It was absolutely mental. I'd heard rumours about it for a couple of days prior, but it's crazy.
That's rumours that that never even told me about, mate. Just kept it in the dark. You didn't even tell.
It was just
the one and only Ryan 118.
I know, it was just those in the know McGinley. I had to make my return, but I didn't want to.
Was this you just looking through the Kerrydale Street forums? Is that when you heard them?
It actually was, and I did see people talking about it. I know. Yeah, but a broken clock's correct twice a day, so...
Well, listen, we've got to get into it all. There's so much to talk about in regards to the whole situation, because it did come out the blue. I was out on Friday. I went out for my dinner with a few of the boys. Kieran Auld was there, and just to address that, people might be asking, it's only been Ryan this time after beating Kieran there last time. Life is now back to that busy point where it's going to be difficult. There's actually a bit of a scenario in which we have to try and figure out when we're going to record now, with university being on, and it's going to become a more difficult situation. So there might be more of these live shows, but we'll address that all in the future. We were out for our dinner, Ryan, and I seen the tweet saying apparently that he had left. I said, surely not. Then within 20 minutes later, we're sitting there in Bucks Bar. Celtic released a statement, and Don McKay has gone from the club. We've parted ways. He stepped down due to personal reasons. Now, can I just say before we get into the discussion and before we talk about positives, negatives, whatever you want to say, we don't quite know the true story. There's nothing been published to suggest this is the reason that Don McKay has left Celtic. Amongst the speculation, may I just say, I hope the best for the guy and his family. I hope everything's okay. And I think that would come from everybody at the podcast. I think that, that's, of course, the main situation. We want everything to be okay there. But Ryan, there has been talk, there has been rumours. I mean, what was the instant reaction, mate, as soon as you seen it? Because when you read that headline at first, especially with the last year at Celtic, your head can't help but go to the same place of what a fucking shit show we are.
Yeah, definitely. It was obviously to heard the rumours a couple of days before, but it still hit me as a complete shock. I thought everything was going all right, and then all of a sudden you hear that your chief executive's gone after 72 days. You're like, he's been here. He's like that Abe Simpson meme, the one where he turns and goes. He's hardly been here and he's left. Yeah, I was completely shocked. I was gutted as well because. Even the first press conference that he done with Ange, I was liking the way he was speaking. He was talking about getting us back into this sort of world class in every single aspect. So I was really gutted that he'd left. You hear more and more as the days went on. I read an article by Alison McConnell that was kind of going on about what had happened or what she had perceived as what had happened. So there's varying sources. You can't really say for sure, but it's a bit of a nightmare because you've just finished the transfer window. You just want to get involved with the football and just think about games that are coming up. And then we've got this sideshow to go with. We already let go one sideshow in certain players leaving the club. Now we've got another sideshow in terms of the CEO. It's not ideal, but it's never boring being a Celtic fan. So.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's like, things start to go decently well, but you can't have it that way. There has to be some form of sideshow, as you said. A good word to use there. Yeah, Don McKay leaving, for me, it was a weird one because I've been very mixed on the Don McKay start. There's been a side of me that has been proper, into the Don McKay revolution. We want to modernise the club and all the rest of it. I was there. The other part of me was the rugby loyal side. There was a real kind of 50-50 split. I was liking the direction. I mean, it was getting he was getting us guys involved in the fan media side of things. We seem to have been heading in the right direction towards making signings. Maybe not enough signings, but we were recruiting. We were recruiting for the manager. Things seem to be going in a relatively positive direction. And then when you see that break, it suddenly just brings the level back down to earth for you. And you're like, well, where do we turn next? We've got a £5, just very quickly, a £5 donation from Matthew. Any concerns with we'll come on to Thursday night later on in the show, but thank you for the donation. And James donates £4.50, says, is it socially acceptable to assault old Irish billionaires who look like Joseph Fritzl? A lovely comment there from James, much appreciated. Yeah, so this is where it comes to, right. So the record, they came out and said in their reports that they understood that McKay jumped before he was pushed after some major players behind the scenes admitted the appointment was not working. Let me just clarify, by the term major players, I don't think they mean major players as in football players. I think they mean major players as in players on the board. So he was pushed before he was jumped, apparently. He jumped before he was pushed, sorry. And there was friction in the backroom, Ryan. It's safe to say, hearing things like that isn't a surprise with how we know our board has worked over the past few years. It's certainly not encouraging, is it?
It's definitely not, and it shows you that the problems weren't, the problems were flawed, but you've also got problems higher up in the hierarchy of the club. You've got these non-executive directors and directors, or whatever you want to call them, that are very much in the past, and you can even tell, reading that article by Alison McConnell, you're like, these guys just don't want change. They want things to stay as it is, which is problematic for the club, because we want to be modernising. That was the big word as well, modernisation. We wanted to modernise every single aspect.
He threw that around so many times, didn't he? He was saying modernise.
And I mean, if you can look back, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if you look at the way Bankier was sitting right next to Ange Postecoglou and Dominic McKay, he looked like the dourest person in the room. So I don't know if there was any friction at that point, but you're just guessing. Of the problem with NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, these things, you'll never really get the whole story. It's just about how much people stick to the NDAs, I think. If McKay just goes stuff it and tells the whole story, it would help. But I don't know if I can see that happening anytime soon, for sure.
But the board for me are just so, until there is a certain passing of the torch, and when I say passing of the torch, I really do stress the word passing, until there's like a significant change in that Celtic boardroom in terms of personnel, whether it be through just retirement or whatever, that board are very happy with the model that they have got going at the moment. The model is working for them. This was the problem this summer about spending so much money. It was always going to be a task for Celtic, and it was always going to be a task more so than finding. The task was going to be more so getting the board to do it rather than finding the right utilities and finding the right players. That was a big ask. Was the board ever going to be willing to change that business model that they've been so fond of for the last 10 years? The board have been lucky that over the past, especially the past 4 or 5 years, up until the demise of last season, we had a lot of domestic success that kept a lot of people quiet on this front. And I've been even luckier in the front that over the last 10 years, we've been domestically dominant with no challenge. Now, the challenge is back, and now they're being forced to spend, but I think they've got so comfortable, Ryan. And I think that they've got someone in here, Dom McKay, who was willing to come in the door, who was willing to change things, and went, hold on, things have worked fine for the last 10 years without realising that there is a significant change in the landscape of Scottish football.
Sorry, there's some technical issues, and it's an absolute nightmare because you're cutting in and out, and it's difficult to hear your point. It might have sorted itself out now.
I thought I made a really good point there as well. Can you hear me now all right? Aye.
Yeah, I can hear you. I heard bits of it.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is the Celtic board have been so comfortable for the last 10 years as the direction we've been going in, but they have to realise this significant change in the landscape of Scottish football, which Dom McKay, I think, was ready to acknowledge and move on with.
Let's be honest, they've got what they wanted. This board loved the Challenger Rangers at the end of the day, because that challenge brings money and season tickets. You saw what happened when there was no challenge. The season ticket numbers went down. There's all of a sudden there's this competition, and I think you don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but they've wanted the challenge all along. They really had the chance to really sink Rangers last season, and they didn't let it happen. They just allowed Rangers to get stronger and stronger every season, and they've got what they wanted. The board have become stagnant, in my opinion. There's too many people that have been there. You look at guys like Brian Wilson, he's been there since 2005 on the board or something.
Yep.
No board member should be on the board for 16 years. That in itself breeds... I don't know. It's
things just get
that
stale,
sort of longevity.
don't
Yeah, that's exactly the word I was looking for. It brings about this staleness. There needs to be fresh ideas that come in every couple of years, in my opinion. There needs to be a sort of revolving door when it comes to the board, as well as on the pitch as well. On the pitch, off the pitch in terms of managerial and coaching, and then on the board as well. There needs to be this freshness, otherwise it goes stale. And we have gone stale. That was a problem. And the one positive that I was taking out of Don McKay was his approach, his sort of corporate approach that looked really professional. And now I feel like all of that's gone, and it's really annoyed me that we've employed basically from within a guy that's been there for 8-9 years. That's another board puppet at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Well, that's where I was going to come to next, Ryan. Michael Nicholson has been appointed as the acting or the temporary CEO of Celtic Football Club. That word worries me, Ryan. Temporary, acting, whatever you want to say, because...
Heard this one before.
Well, yep, exactly. This is what happened when Neil Lennon was given the temporary managerial job. This is what's happened plenty of times in the past. You know, it depends, obviously, how things go at Celtic, but, you know, you look at the chances, and I think the stronger lean towards this guy ended up getting the job full-time, permanent basis. And that's exactly what we have to avoid. There is such a complexion, isn't there, Ryan, on Don McKay and then Michael Nicholson in terms of who they are.
Yeah, it seems as if we got the sort of guy that we wanted in terms of Don McKay, the sort of forward-thinking CEO that was going to bring us into this new era, this sort of modernisation. I've talked about it 5 times already. I think I've repeated it as much as Don McKay did in his first press conference. But now I feel as if the board have kind of taken it away from us. They've sort of taken our dinner money away from us and been like, no, we're bringing our own people in now. We've done this experiment for long enough. We don't like what this new man said. Like, I'm speaking in. It's all speculation at this point, and it's difficult to speculate on something that you're not part of all those boardroom talk meetings and all the chat and stuff. But I mean, you put 2 and 2 together. He wasn't really. He seems as if he was this sort of guy that was trying to bring new things into the team and the football club as a whole. And now they've just went for a safe option in Nicholson. I mean, I will give Nicholson a chance in that. Like, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's not a great look when you're bringing in someone that's already previously been on the board for 8-9 years.
Is that the issue? Is it hard to give him the benefit of the doubt, just understanding who's worked with in the past? And, you know, there was rumours going about that one of the big issues, and it's been kind of dismissed apparently, but there was rumours going around that the reason McKay wasn't happy, there was a part of a reason why McKay wasn't happy, was because Peter Law was still there. They were still pulling strings. He was still a part of the club in such an integral way, which he was apparently meant to step back from. Does that then worry you? Does that make it harder to give the benefit of the doubt to someone who has previously been working with Peter Law and Dermot Desmond?
It does. I mean, I'm kind of forced to, because it's, well, not forced to. You could obviously choose not to do it, but I would rather give somebody a chance than sort of just say no, like, straight away. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. He does have a good background. He's been involved in the finances, but this is really an area that I'm not entirely comfortable in talking about, sort of boardroom level stuff. I would need to do more homework before I was. But
you'd have to
I just hate talking about things I don't really know a lot about.
Law or something. Are we HND in law or are we HND in business?
Yeah, I know. But he is well renowned in those circles. But I mean, at the end of the day, as the Celtic board circle, so you don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But overall, I'm disappointed that Don McKay's gone, because I was really confident that he could bring us in to sort of a new era. Just by the way he was speaking, by the models in which he was looking to base Celtic on, such as Salzburg and Brentford. That was what I wanted my team to be doing, sort of getting in more into the analytical side of things. And it is disappointing. It feels as if we've had that modern step and we've went back the way, but, you know, we just got to see where it goes.
Now the question that I want to ask, does it worry you that, you know, this could affect the job of Ange Postecoglou? You know, he was recruited and he was apparently Don McKay's man. Don McKay was the one who went out and found Ange Postecoglou. There was a relationship that looked good on first sighting. Does it ever worry you that that could maybe change now that Ange starts to look at this and go, oh, hold on, things are changing at an alarming rate here, things are happening that I was not promised would happen. Do these sort of thoughts start going around your mind, or do you think that Ange is just fully focused now on the job on the pitch rather than what's going on above him?
I think he is just totally focused, and he was saying that in his interviews as well, that he's thought nothing of it. He's been thinking about Ross County and only Ross County, and he sort of distanced himself from the whole Don McKay story, which is great. That's what his sort of job is, to take the football team, and I'm glad that he's focusing on just that. I really like the way Ange Postecoglou speaks, and I wish he could do a lot of our statements, like just with everything in general, because the way he puts things is so much more. It's better the way he sort of addresses the fans when he was talking about the Green Brigade banner, and he was doing it with a bit of respect as well, something that we've not seen from the board in certain instances last season. But I'm glad that he's focusing on the football. I mean, that's what he's employed to do, and I'm very happy with the way he's doing things at the moment. So
I have no complaints about Ange. You couldn't have any complaints about Ange at the end of the day, could we? Not so far. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've had a watch with Ange Postecoglou, and I just hope he stays here for the long run.
Yeah, we need to figure out what's happening. Ryan, do you think this is a proper end? I've just got the feeling now that we're going to settle with Nicholson. That's it to the end of the season. Let's just try and get the fans focusing on everything on the pitch rather than off the pitch. Do you think they're just going to try and keep it in the background now and try and keep the talk as quiet as possible? Because I personally don't see them going out and finding this new permanent CEO anytime soon. In my eyes, that from what my understanding is of the situation, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, we've seen this movie before. When people get brought in as acting, you've seen that with Neil Lennon. He was brought in as interim, and then he get the job. You've seen it with what was his name? Hammond. He get a 3-month sort of audition period. Then he done all right, and then he get the job permanently. So, I mean, he's a safe pair of hands for the board's perspective. So I don't really see anything else happening other than him getting the permanent job.
One more thing, actually, before we move on and we start talking about the football itself, and before we can start being a bit more positive, the Charlie Mulgrew voice, though, that was some laugh. Obviously, Charlie Mulgrew. I was convinced at first, to be honest. I thought it sounded exactly like, of course, Charlie Mulgrew's. Now, for people who might not be avid Twitter users or whatever, basically, it goes as follows. Voice note was leaked of Charlie Mulgrew, quotation marks, giving a whole story about the departure of Don McKay. The story sounded, credible. It sounded very realistic. You're like, right, that's understandable. And it also sounded like Charlie Mulgrew. Since then, Charlie Mulgrew has now came out. He said, if you believe that, you believe anything. He's poked a bit of fun at it as well. He's talking about, what was it again, cutting jibs? Is that what it was?
Yeah, he didn't like jibs. The cut of people's jibs on Twitter this weekend. It was actually a great bit of patter.
It was a great bit of patter. He took it and he ran with it well. It's obviously, he's kind of proved it as nonsense now. You were the one that sent me it on Saturday night. Was it Ryan? I think it was Saturday night. And you sent me it.
Saturday night, aye.
And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, oh my fucking God, when I was listening to it. But it was so convincing, wasn't it? It was so like, it was easy to believe. Now, I feel like I pride myself on being one of those guys on Twitter who don't fall into things very easily, who don't believe nonsense. I wait until there's some credible source behind it or there's something there. I take my time with things normally. But that, I was straight away, maybe it's because I had a drink in me and all, but that straight away I was convinced was Big Chico Mulgrew.
It was the delivery of it as well. I don't know if it's still out there. It's probably been deleted now.
I think it's still there. I was listening to it earlier on just to hear it one more time, and I was still convinced it was Charlie Mulgrew. Somebody
could get a gig in terms of Charlie Mulgrew impressions. I don't know if there's a market for that. I don't know where you would want to do a Charlie Mulgrew impression, but no, it sounded very credible. But nah, it summed up that weekend. It was such a weird weekend in terms of stories coming out, and Charlie Mulgrew at the end of the weekend doing that sort of video was really, really funny.
What I was going to say, the story in it though itself, I wouldn't be surprised if it was along those lines, Ryan. I honestly would not. It sounded so realistic in terms of what the story could be. Like, if I was to hear the true story, I wouldn't be surprised if it was close to this fake Charlie Mulgrew story.
Yeah, it did sound credible, the whole story, to be honest. You,
Oh, they're Ryan away, or one of us away.
like, I wouldn't put this past them. Oh, this is
Uh,
this is honestly the podcast from hell. This stream, I am sitting right next to my router again, and it's
it'll,
just not working
it'll
whatsoever.
be, it'll probably be on my side, don't matter. Can you hear me now? Aye.
Yep.
That's fine. £2. Okay, it's actually it's been running decently on my end. As long as my end is the end that's getting put out on video, we'll be all right. Because I feel like it's been no bad.
To be fair, it probably is going to be my router because my wee brother's got one of those gaming PCs that's running constantly.
Ah, right. Okay, makes sense. People are saying anyway, McGinley away. So it must be unit. But look, listen, it's been coming fine here apart from that wee blip there. So we'll keep going. Aaron Smith is. God, they love those questions, don't they? The shag, marry, kills, don't they?
They're
Desmond,
absolute deviants, a lot of them.
I know. Can you take your mind off the filth for a moment, Aaron? Christ, serious adult conversation going on here in the Sellik the Thunder. We'll answer at the end of the episode. £2 donation though. Thank you very much, Aaron. Let's move on to talking about the football. Celtic were back in action after the international break. We took on Ross County the weekend. Right now, I want to start the conversation, and a big shout out to all 330 odd people listening to the show live at the moment. It will be up afterwards to listen on Spotify and YouTube. But I want to start off with something that created a bit of controversy on Twitter, Ryan, on Saturday afternoon. And I want to talk about it in the podcast. I put up a tweet on Saturday just before kickoff, and I said, ban You'll Never Walk Alone for all non-European and non-derby games. A lot of people were not happy with it. A lot of people agreed with it. I think it should be gone. It loses its touch against Ross County and fucking St Johnstone and all that. It's an amazing song. It's the best anthem in world football. I'm a 60s man born and bred. I love Jerry Marsden. I love Jerry the Pacemakers. I love the Beatles. I love everything about the 1960s and its music. But when you start to play what is meant to be an emotional, crowd-roaring song every single week against the likes of Ross County and only half the scarves in the stadium are up in the air, it loses its fucking touch for me, and I feel like it should be gone from all the domestic games, right? It isn't a derby game.
Yeah, I done a wee protest of myself because, I mean, I was rough as hell on Saturday, so I wasn't standing up to do You'll Never Walk Alone against Ross County. It makes it look as if I'm singing You'll Never Walk Alone to Balky McKay or something. I don't want that sort of look at all. No, I do agree. It does sort of lose its significance when you're doing it against wee teams like St Mirren and Hearts and other wee teams like that. I would much rather keep it to the Champions League games or Europa League games, whatever European competition we're in, Rangers games,
Cup game,
and maybe games
like Hampden, stuff like that.
Hampden's a must, especially after the game. See if we've got through a big game and then all the crowd do You'll Never Walk Alone. There's nothing better. But I think less is more when it comes to You'll Never Walk Alone.
I was getting this a lot in the comments as well to that tweet. A lot of people were saying ban it altogether. It's a Liverpool, this is the first time I've heard a Liverpool funeral march, but a lot of people were saying just ban it altogether, get rid of it. It's already used by Liverpool. It's outdated, stuff like that. I wouldn't ban it altogether. I do love it. I love You'll Never Walk Alone. There's a real emotional sort of, it's great when it fits the occasion, but that's the danger we're now getting to, I think, is we're wasting it. It's a new thing as well. Me and Kieran Aldo spoke about this so much. Me and Kieran Aldo sat beside each other at games now for 5, coming up 6 years, I think. And it was only towards the end of the 1920 campaign we started using it in these pointless home games. We never done it. I swear to God, I've never sung You'll Never Walk Alone against Ross County until now. They never done it. They saved it for the big occasions. And I don't know if it's because we're now frequently selling out the stadium more and we're always getting a bigger crowd. It just still...
The only thing I can think of is that they're sort of getting the novelty out of it because we're just back after all that time away. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then I hope they stop it sometime soon.
I'll tell you, they did start doing it right before COVID happened. We sung it against St Mirren, for talking sakes, when we beat St Mirren 5-0. And I remember turning to my mate and going, why are we playing this against St Mirren? It's not the same. Half the stadium don't join in. It's the difference is massive between a European game and a St Mirren game and a Ross County game when they sing You'll Never Walk Alone. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love the song. I love everything that goes with it as well. But like I said before, I think less is more when it comes to that. I want to keep it for big games because then it remains special. Like
This is nonsense. That comment there is absolute nonsense. You must have been to about 3 fucking games then. Never been to Parkhead, no song You Never Walk Alone. I have had a season ticket for 6 years now, and I have sung it less. I've not sung it more than I have fucking sung it, and I can guarantee that. Like, I can honestly put pen to paper and guarantee that we've not sung it more than we have sung it. I know it for a fact. It riles me up, right? It really fucking riles me up.
See, this is your version of my Celtic song rant that I was on. But I've seen I don't that sort of thing.
But I don't hate You'll Never Walk Alone. I love You'll Never Walk Alone. I just feel like it works better when you use it for actual big occasions rather than...
There's Ryan away.
There's my camera. The camera's like, shut up, right? I just feel like it honestly loses its touch when you... Half the stadium don't bother fucking joining in, and I'll fucking stick to it anyway. Listen, I've been ranting enough. A lot of people might disagree. A lot of people will agree. It's just my hot take. I'd just rather it was...
You're allowed an opinion. We don't live in China. You're allowed an opinion.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. People saying I'm plastic in that. Christ, I'm not. I still join in, but it just doesn't feel the same. Like, you know, you feel something. You feel it in your homos when you sing it against the likes of Leipzig in the Europa League, you know? Steady. Right, let's go on to Ross County. Right, at the weekend, a 3-0 win for Celtic. It was a tale of two halves, I thought. We looked a bit sluggish in the first. Second, we came out a little bit better. We got our 3 goals. We win the game. But, you know, it's the kind of things you'd expect from a Celtic side who are getting a lot of new players bedded into the team and coming back from an international break, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't even think we played that well on Saturday, to be honest. Nah. I thought that there was no... I saw Paul from Celtic Fans TV was getting a bit of stick for saying that we didn't play well despite winning 3-0. The two can be separate. Like, you can win 3-0 and still play shite, which I think we did do for large majority of that game. The pressing just wasn't there from the other 2 games. I think that's maybe down to a couple of things. A couple of players not came back from international duty. Like Kyogo, obviously he's injured and he sort of brought the tempo with him. Thought we were missing Ralston a wee bit as well for his tempo in the game. He brings about a bit of a forward thinking that the whole team gets behind, I think. As much as I love Juranovic and I think he will be the starter, Ralston does give you that sort of heart as well in the team. The tempo wasn't really there at the weekend, at least until Montgomery came on. I think Montgomery changed the game when he came on. He brought that fire with him. But you know, we're in a good position that we can moan about playing rubbish after winning 3-0. That wasn't happening last season. When we were playing rubbish, we were getting beat or dropping points coming into the second half of the season. So it shows that things are improving under Ange.
They are improving, and listen, you know, to come back from international break, win 3-0, you know, it's pretty much job done. There was a concern for me, though. I felt like at half-time, Ryan, as you said, the press wasn't there, that heart didn't seem to be there. There was a kind of worry going through my head at half-time that we weren't going to bother scoring a goal. I was like, oh, Christ, this is going to be one of these days. You know, it's going to be a real struggle. We need a bit of luck. And to be fair, I thought we did get a bit of luck with the way that the Carter Vickers goal comes about. That sort of changed the game for me in a sense where it did allow the floodgates to open a wee bit. I think Ross County became a little more exposed, and you know, without that goal you could have been going a lot longer without scoring one, I think.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know where the goal was coming from. So I'm glad that Carter Vickers just basically pumped it and it went in. I could have used a better word there, honestly. That's the first thing I could think of. Just takes a massive deflection and just goes over. I've seen Rangers score a goal like that all the time. So it was so glad that we could get a goal like that. Just one of those lucky goals. And he had a great overall performance. He was man of the match, and I thought he was one of the better players on the day. It was a really good debut and definitely a sign of things to come. But it was it was 3-0 at the end of the day. It was comfortable at the end of the second half, but there was a couple of chances that Ross County got that they really should have taken. There was a couple of balls that went right in front of the goalkeeper that went past the goalkeeper that you're thinking they could have got somebody on the end of that. And I think a better team would have hurt us more on the day.
And also, as well, you're talking about Joe Hart making a big save in that game too, which I think in my video I said that came at the point of 2 or 3-0, but it was when we were only 1-0 up, wasn't it? That save came in the game.
It was right before we scored.
I was corrected on that. Yep, exactly. You know, that was, you know, you could have changed the whole game once again there. You're looking at a big save from the keeper. I want to talk about Montgomery for a little bit, actually, because you've touched
Phenomenal.
on him. You brought him up about how you think he changed the game. My initial reaction when I seen Taylor go off the park was more focused on Taylor than Montgomery. My reaction was, well, this is us leaving ourselves in the problem now of not signing a left back. We've left ourselves in the situation where we're having to rely on Montgomery, a young lad who wasn't even brought up as a left back. You know, this is the situation we found ourselves in. But every time I see Montgomery play thus far as a Celtic player, he's impressed me. I don't feel like I've had a bad word to say about him. At the weekend, I thought he looked a natural, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the game that really stood out for me was the game against Alkmaar when he came on. That was for Greg Taylor as well, I'm sure. So it was the same sort of situation. He came on and he was absolutely brilliant. He's never ever let us down in any of the games that I've seen him so far. I remember I think his debut was against St Johnstone last season, one of the last games of the season. He was absolutely brilliant, no fear in his game whatsoever. And he brings this intensity and tempo that Greg Taylor just doesn't have, in my opinion. Greg Taylor, for me, is a Kilmarnock standard left back. I think Montgomery's got a higher ceiling than Greg Taylor. And
would you not move him up now that Kilmarnock have been relegated? Would you not maybe say he's better than the Championship?
Put him maybe in like a St Johnstone or a Dundee United or something. I mean, do you know? I think
I know you're not his biggest fan.
I think it's a myth that he's good defensively as well, because I don't think he is. I think he's very, I don't want to say average, middle of the road. He's not going to progress us in any sort of way. And I just feel like Montgomery, every time I watch him, I'm just impressed by him. He came on a really good game against Ross County a couple of days ago. And I'm like, this guy is going to be something special, I think. My dad was coming out the game saying he reminds me a wee bit of Kieran Taylor, and I can see that, this sort of drive and determination.
Yeah, I was saying the same as well.
And I do not want to put that pressure on him, but I'm definitely liking the cut of his jib as a
the cut. You got it in. There you go. The cut of his jib. Of course, a lot of people bringing up Liam Scales as well. A lot of people were going after heat at me at the weekend. For saying. So I said in my 3 things we learned video, I was like, why did we not sign a left back? Because we could certainly get a better left back than Greg Taylor in my eyes. So I was like, why have we not signed a left back? There was so many people like, we signed Scales. I'm like, well, Scales is a centre back who started recently playing left back. Let's not ignore that. Let's once again not ignore the fact that his natural position isn't that.
The reason he started playing as a left back was because there was injury problems at Shamrock Rovers. And he did say in his fan media press conference that his ideal position is left centre half. I think the reason why we haven't. I was getting
attacked in the comments section. They were fucking. Have you not kept up? I was like, I'm fucking telling the truth here.
There are definitely worse things that you could moan about. The fact that Celtic didn't go and sign a left back. I think the reason why Celtic didn't go out and sign an out-and-out left back is because of Adam Montgomery. It would hurt his chances in terms of getting into the first team.
I wish we still signed one, I must be honest. I wish we did still sign one. I don't think it's not something that I would. I'm not going to sit and fucking cry and moan and shout and condemn and all the rest of it. I just wish that we did sign. I thought we could have got one better than Taylor. So that's understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
I don't want his chances to be hurt. I was kind of the same. It's weird even saying this, to look back on this. I was the same when Abada was getting signed, because I didn't want Dembele's chances to get to sort of get scuppered. But at the same time now, I'm so glad that we've got Abada, because it just shows you what happens in football. Forrest is constantly injured, and then Dembele gets a long-term injury. So it just shows that you need depth in these areas. And maybe we do have this depth now. I know Bolingoli's so far out the picture, but we've got Taylor, we've got Montgomery, and we've got Scales that can play there. I think we're not decent in that area, but I think we're adequate just now.
Adequate? Oh, would you stretch as far as adequate? I like this comparison that Lewis Laird has made. The Scales comparisons, the Scales, people saying Scales could be the left back and all the rest of that. Yeah, it can be, but it does. That's a really good comparison. When Ahmed signed, Ahmed was a centre half, remember? Or was he was a centre half coming in? Or was it? Was he? I thought then he started playing right back or whatever. Anyway, it does remind me of that sort of situation. You know, once again, it's like we're content with going. He played there for a couple of games, so they can play here for the rest of the fucking season. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think you need to prepare, you need to be ready, because if Montgomery goes down, then you're ultimately looking at a situation where, right, now we've got to bring in someone who the manager has no faith in whatsoever in Bolingoli.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even had a competitive minute for Celtic this season. I remember seeing that wee list of players that haven't had a single competitive minute under Ange Postecoglou, and there's about 5 or 6 there that haven't got a move. They're just going to be languishing there. They'll be in this sort of purgatory, because a lot of them won't be old enough, or a lot of them won't be young enough to play in the B team as well, which is a problem. So they're in this sort of purgatory that they can't get game time, which is unfortunate for their careers, because you want these guys to be progressing, whether they're at Celtic or at another team. I hate seeing players just stagnate at the one club. It's one of the worst things to see in football. It's a shame that, I mean, I thought Bolingoli would have had people in Turkey that were going for him, because I thought he'd done all right.
I must admit, I do love that comment. Open the gates, let Bolly have a phone party with his mates. I do love that. But look, in all seriousness about Bolingoli, you seen our bench at the weekend, didn't you, Ryan? It was vulgar. It was
awful.
It was vulgar.
Awful. Now, I remember some of the benches we seen under Brendan Rodgers, and then compare that to that bench.
If Bolingoli can't make that bench at the weekend, what bench is he ever going to make? What chance is he ever going to get at Celtic? His career at Celtic is all but over. I think it's done. I think it's just finite. So I don't know. It's a weird one, but I was impressed with Montgomery to kind of wrap up that sort of part of the conversation. Up front, Ayeti, 2 goals, Ryan. Good to see him get a bit of confidence in his game. We've been waiting for that. I said it was now or never for Ayeti. It did take him his time to warm into the game, but he did get there in 2 goals. You can't exactly knock it. What was your thoughts on Ayeti?
The amount of abuse that Ayeti got in that game, considering he scored 2 goals, is absolutely incredible online. I'm not meaning at the game, because he was a wee bit frustrating at the game until he scored the 2 goals. But see, after the game, people were criticising him, saying he was rubbish, he wasn't interested. I'm like, are we just going to get the same sort of narrative as we did with Edward last season?
And this is my fear, Ryan. This is my fear. I love Kyogo Furuhashi. I love him. I adore him. He's an amazing player, an amazing talent. My fear is that people are naive enough to look at how much he runs and then compare it with other strikers and go, oh, he doesn't run as much as Kyogo. There's different types of footballers on this planet. Different types of strikers. Not every striker's going to run as much as Kyogo. Kyogo Furuhashi's 5'7". He weighs 110 pounds or whatever it is.
See, if we wanted someone that would run 24/7, then Thomas Gravison would still be at Celtic, but he ran about like a headless chicken most of the games. It's all about picking your moments, picking your runs, and being in the right place at the right time. Ayeti was at the right place at the right time twice on Saturday, and he got his 2 goals, and he deserved them. And that first goal, especially, isn't getting talked about enough. That is an incredible goal. The header is a great header, and it's a great cross in by Abada. He's not getting enough credit for that header, because it is a really good header.
Yeah, and I hope Ayeti does manage to keep this going. Because Ayeti for me is someone who I've wanted to succeed for a long time. Is someone who I wanted to succeed before we even signed him, because I wanted him to sign so much for the club. This chance now, he'll go into Thursday starting the game, you would imagine. So I'm hoping that Ayeti does manage to keep this going. And it might be hard against the likes of Betis to get goals, but in the league games especially, I hope he keeps showing why he can be relied on at Celtic. I don't think we're going to be looking at Ayeti as someone who's going to be starting for Celtic for a long time, but he's certainly somebody who can offer options, Ryan, and certainly be a reliable player for Celtic.
And you've got to think, before his injury as well, under Neil Lennon, he was scoring a goal every game, basically. So he's definitely got it in his locker to score goals. He's scored it at a higher level, you would say, in Switzerland for Basel, which got him his move to West Ham. He's just been a guy that's had some awful luck and awful timing, I think. He didn't really get any game time, and then the pandemic happened. He then was out for 8-9 months not playing football. All of a sudden gets thrusted in, and there was so much pressure on him last season to get the 10. And then all the sort of fallout happened with the manager. I don't know if him and Lennon fell out as well. But he's been working hard. He looks in tremendous shape under Ange Postecoglou, and he's got his 2 goals, and he deserved his 2 goals. And going into the game on Thursday, he had one of his best performances for Celtic away from home. You might remember against Lille. when we drew 2 each. I mean, we were up 2-0 at half time. People were saying that was a great result that we get 2 each, but we dropped points in that game. That was mental last season. But do you know, he was absolutely brilliant against Lille last season, and I'd give him another chance up front, definitely.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing more of him. I really do, and I hope he keeps going well. But let's talk about European football. That was a nice wee segue, Ryan. Thanks very much. We kickstart our Europa League campaign on Thursday. We head to Seville to take on Real Betis in the opening fixture of the Europa League. I'm buzzing for European football to be back, Ryan. Yes, we have been handed a difficult card this season once more. This is standard now for Celtic, isn't it, Ryan? We're given a tough group. We've got to get on with it. We certainly have the quality, I think, to challenge to get through this group.
Yeah, definitely. Or at least to challenge to get through to a European spot. Because obviously you get that third place finish, you go into the Conference League. I know you absolutely love the Conference League. You're desperate for us to play in the Conference League.
Yes, of course.
I can see it in your face. You hate it.
Buzzing.
Do you know we've got a chance? If we win all our games at home, then that's 9 points.
What is it? It says in Derek Ray introduces Lee Dixon in FIFA and he says, you know what, Derek, if you win all your home games and you don't lose your away games, you've got a pretty decent chance of going through. That's it.
That's it. Do you know? And I mean, Ferencváros, we should be looking to get 6 points off of them. I know they put us out the Champions League last season, but I think we're a much better team than we were last season. Got a much better manager to begin with. And then it's just your games at home against Betis and Leverkusen. I think either team could win those games. I know Leverkusen are a top team, but do you know, when you get Celtic Park, when you get 60,000 fans, you know, why not? We could pull an upset against Leverkusen, and then you've got to expect that Betis and Leverkusen will take points off each other, so it could work in our favour. But we need to not get beaten Thursday, and it'd be a great start to the group.
Well, let's talk about Betis, and I'll be more in depth this week when I do the match preview on Wednesday night. I'll get to talk a lot more about it, but as Celtic fans, I have been guilty so many times of writing off Celtic in European games and going, our teams are too good for this. Mm-hmm. I've been looking at Betis so far this season, and I think us as Celtic fans, let's not write our chances out altogether. Betis are 3 games into their league season, yet to win a game. They play tonight against Granada. I believe they kick off at 9 o'clock in what will be their 4th game of the season. If they don't beat Granada, a side who are below them in the table, if they don't beat Granada, they will go 4 games without winning anything. Right? They've drawn 2, lost 1, and they sit 13th in the table, Real Betis. Now, that's got all the makings of Celtic losing when they should be winning, but that's a side Celtic can go and beat, I think.
Yeah, it's a side that don't really look as if they're in any sort of top form at all starting this season. Just looking through their team just now, they've got a couple of really familiar names. Christian Theo, Mark Bartra, William Carvalho. I mean, so they've got really good names there. But
and of course, they've got Manuel Pellegrini at the helm as well.
What age is he? About 142 now. The guy is a walking corpse, honestly. That sounds absolutely terrible.
67 years old. There you go.
Do you know, I think we've got a chance. I mean, it's going to be a very difficult game. Their stadiums are really, really sort of intimidating place. They've got a great atmosphere, especially when they play Seville. That's one of the great derbies in Spain. But we've got to go there with no fear. We've earned our place in this competition with getting through against Alkmaar. And it's a one-off game now. It's not like we're 2-legged games. We've just got to go out and give our best performance and see where that takes us.
Yeah, they've certainly got. That's the difficult thing about European games. We can talk about domestic form all you want, but it always seems that the case is with Celtic. You turn up against these sides. Look, we know our recent European history. It's very poor in regards to progression and in regards to losing games like Ferencváros, like Midtjylland. Like, you know, we have been very, very poor in the big stage at times. With these teams, all it takes is the performance on the day from key players like your Nabil Fekirs, like your William Carvalhos. You know, you give those guys a moment, you take the lapse of concentration for a moment, Ryan, and suddenly you find yourself a goal behind because they can produce that magic. Our problem last year, Ryan, is if we try and contrast the 2 seasons, our problem last year was exactly that. We had no concentration. We switched off. We were so lackadaisical. People were getting in behind us. We need to learn from that last season, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. And there's still a lot of players that were playing last season that will be sort of hardened by those sorts of experiences last season against AC Milan and Lille, etc. Obviously, the 2 games against Sparta Prague were an absolute nightmare. So they've got to take that experience from last season to put it into this season. It's very much a very wide open group. You'd say that any team could sort of qualify if they get a run of form. Even Ferencváros, they could mount a bit of a surprise in the group, but especially playing in Hungary, you would imagine that they've got a sort of hostile atmosphere. That's just the way the Hungarian sort of fans are. But I'm actually just talking about Mars here. I think all the teams have a chance, and loads of teams will take points off each other. So, but it is important that we get off to a good start and don't get beat on Thursday. I would take a draw just now.
Yeah, yeah. If you go, it'll be one. I'll watch this. We'll 2-0 up at half time. We'll draw the game with fucking raging. That's what's going to end up happening. But I wish Kieran Auld was here. Kieran Auld would bring a right good, right down to earth, we're fucked attitude to this. He doesn't like getting his hopes up for games like this. He keeps it real. I think
he's been going to games since the 60s. To be fair to Kieran Auld, so
you've got this theory that us two, me and Kieran, are like 75 years old.
I usually like the Scottish version of Benjamin Button. I swear to God.
I don't know whether it'd be
the two. You're Brad Pitt, so you're going to be handsome at one point.
Oh, thanks. Cheers. Thanks very much.
This has gone into a really weird place.
There's been a big question in the comment section, Ryan, as I'm trying to follow it live, looking at what people are saying about Thursday night. Mm-hmm. Conversation as to how our midfield lines up on Thursday. We have been pretty much set on the Rogic, McGregor, and what's his name? Forgot. Turnbull. The Turnbull middle three. That's been the three we've been going with. Do you think against the likes of Betis, especially at Betis, we should be bringing in a McCarthy?
Either McCarthy or Sorrow, one or the other.
Do you trust Sorrow enough?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know where McCarthy is in terms of his fitness. I don't know. Whenever I watch McCarthy, the couple of times I've watched him, he's like a guy that's just started playing fives. He seems to get the ball caught between his feet quite a lot.
I feel like I feel like we've not seen him at all. I feel like literally he's just been a kind of mysterious sort of figure that's patrolled the park. I honestly have no recollection of going.
Signed him for that press conference. Honestly, that's
like I've no recollection of any of his 2 appearances so far. Is it 2 appearances he's made? I think it's 2, isn't it? 2 or 3. I have no recollection of turning around and going, "Oh fuck's sake, McCarthy!" or "That's great, McCarthy." I feel like I've said absolutely nothing. I've been just completely neutral about his performances so far.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder who would get dropped then, because obviously McGregor wouldn't get dropped. He's the captain. Mm-hmm. I just wonder if they'd maybe keep Rogic to play that sort of free role just ahead.
Both of them had a quiet game at the weekend for me, Rogic and Turnbull. I thought both of them were really vacant from the game. But, I mean, you look at Rogic coming back from a fucking 24-hour journey to Australia, and then Turnbull, I mean, not so much. He didn't do too much.
Just the 7 minutes across 3 games. Let's be honest. Let's put this out there right now. By the way, he has been good recently, Turnbull, but he was absolutely awful on Saturday. Like the guy. He was. I don't know what was the problem, because it seemed as if he was thinking too much about his passing. It's all instinct when it comes to Turnbull. See, when he starts thinking about what he's doing, he's his own worst enemy. He just needs to let his game come to him, and then he'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah. So, would you make a change then? Would you drop one of them and bring in a McCarthy or a Sorrow on Thursday night?
I think that these are the sort of games that McCarthy's came to Celtic for, to sort of bring that discipline in terms of a central defensive midfielder. So, yeah, I would probably put him in, yeah.
Fair enough. I think I would too. Especially when they have got like the likes of Nabil Fekir, who is just cracking, brilliant player. You know, he can really light it up if he needs to. So, you know what? Let's see how the team lines up on Thursday.
It's mental how football works like that, and it's just Fekir had taken all his pictures with the Liverpool media team and that. He was basically signed, and then he failed his medical, and all of a sudden he's at Betis. I've got to say, 4 or 5 years ago, I wouldn't have expected him to be playing for Betis. I thought he would have been higher up than that, but do you know, it's just the way football goes.
It seemed like such a weird transfer in the first place, going from Lyon to Betis. I didn't really I mean, I suppose the La Liga is just a better standard of league. You got more of a chance there, I think.
It was I mean, it probably is a better standard of league, although I think the two are very similar now in terms of the way the teams are.
Oh,
Especially
yes,
if you
yes.
go down after the first 4 or 5 teams, you see a real drop off in quality. But um, a very strange sort of move. I thought he would have been, if not to Liverpool, then maybe a lesser Premier League team. But,
Yeah.
do you know he's a bit of a maverick. He can a maverick or an enigma. He can bring out the best. He's got a very powerful shot on him, and we just need to be wary of that.
Right, well, we'll move on. We'll come back. We'll probably come back to talk about this at some point. We'll be on the podcast. I do want to bring phone-ins and stuff back because I don't know what's going to happen with the filming schedule for the Sellik the Thunder. That's going to be the most difficult part, Ryan, because now we would normally record on a Monday after the Sunday games. But the thing is, me and you have got uni on a Monday. Yep. Kieran Auld has college on a Monday. I'm not sure what the two Callums are up to. We can't do a Monday night because I work a Monday night. We might need to change up what day we do. It might have to end up becoming like some sort of Friday show or something. We'll figure it out.
We'll make it work. We'll make it up.
We'll make it up. We'll make it up. We'll get there and we'll do it all as we always do. We're there and we're always there, as I would say. But we're coming to the end, the last 10 minutes of the show or such, which is your chance, lads, to get involved in the chat and fire some questions to me and McGinley. There will be no, if you know your history quiz today, I know, shame, but I mean, it's hardly like I can compete with McGinley myself with reading the answers out on the screen. So we will just have to go ahead and go without the quiz. But now's your time. Fire in questions in the chat, and also make sure to follow at Sellik Podcast on Twitter, and that's where you can get involved with future phone-ins. You can look at our posts. You can see some fan media exclusives that might not make it to YouTube. We've got one tomorrow, I believe, Ryan. I believe you'll be speaking to Mr. Cameron Carter-Vickers. You looking forward to that?
Yep. Yeah, very much so. He's got a really sort of interesting history, which I want to ask about. I think I'm going to ask because his dad was actually in the NBA.
Don't give away. I know. That would be good to ask him. Don't give away any of your questions, though. Don't give away any of your questions.
That's Hamish. Get his question sorted for tomorrow if he watches this. I'm only joking. I love Hamish.
Love him. What a hero. Right, let's go. Let's get some questions going. And see how things are getting on. Let's go. Let's get Douglas. Douglas says,
that's a really good question.
Do you think with Dom McKay leaving, will Celtic still raid the J League in January? Or will it be an uphill battle for Ange now? Ryan, what are you thinking?
I still think he'll definitely look in that area. I don't really see the...
I think, with Ange Postecoglou in charge, you would assume that his transfer targets and the players that he's interested in would resonate throughout any CEO. I don't think it necessarily has to be Dom McKay. Now, I think Dom McKay would maybe present more of an advantage in paying money and being more ambitious. But I think if Ange Postecoglou goes, yeah, I like that guy, I don't think for any reason, I don't see why Michael Nicholson would stand and go, oh, no, he plays in the J League, so no. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think with the amount of power that Ange now has, because obviously we don't have a head of recruitment, we don't have a director of football, then we probably will be shopping in that market again, because he'll have the sort of overriding judgment on players, at least until we bring a director of football in. I don't know what the case is with that. It's a bit concerning because Don McKay was supposed to be the one that was supposed to be doing that. Now he's obviously gone, so I don't know what sort of changes will be made. But I do think we will look in the J League. There's definitely talent there, and it's an untapped market. You've seen what happened with Kyogo. I cannot believe no other team picked him up before the age of 26. We've got him in the prime of his career, and I don't know how much he's worth already, but it's definitely quite a high number, I would say. There's definitely other talent there. You see some of the highlights. There's more of a sort of spotlight on Japanese football now. When a player's coming along, you're seeing people talk about the Japanese league more now because of Kyogo. You're like, if you can put that sort of Ange link together, then we can bring him over to Scotland. But it will be easier to bring players over because it will be the end of the season by January, and teams won't be as sort of reluctant to let their top talent go midway through a season because it'll be the end of the season. But yeah, I think we will shop in that market again. And why not?
Do you think Forest's position's in jeopardy with the way Liel Abada's been playing?
It already is. Abada's already, I think, better than Forest. I think he gives more.
I think he's got the starting spot now. I think that's it. I think he's got the starting spot.
And that's no disrespect to James Forrest because he's been one hell of a player past 10, 11 years. Yep, absolutely. Do you know there was a point in his career where James Forrest looked as if he was going at the end of Ronnie Dylas? I think he was down to...
Oh, we've lost McGinley. McGinley's away. He's frozen. I'm hoping that I'm still here as McGinley probably comes back to air for the next sort of 10 to 15. There he is.
Yep,
He's back to
I'm
air.
back. I'm back.
What were you in the middle
Sorry,
of saying,
I was talking about the fact that Brendan Rodgers, and you've got to give credit to Brendan Rodgers, he changed the trajectory of James Forrest's career because he looked as if he was on the way out at the end of Ronnie Dylas seasons. He was down to about a year left in his deal, and then Brendan Rodgers, much like Scott Brown, totally changed his career, and he was part of one of the most successful periods of our history, if not the most successful in terms of modern day anyway.
Yes.
He's been a fantastic servant, but Abada is the future and the present, in my opinion.
The future and the present. I like that.
I think he could have easily been man of the match on Saturday as well, because everything positive in an attacking sense was coming through Abada. That cross to Ayeti was stunning. And do you know the amount of goals and assists that he's getting in games? He's undroppable at the moment.
Undroppable, I'd agree. Kanzo says, how long do you think it will take to get the Greek striker fit enough to play? There's not been much of a word, has there, in terms of when he'll be there, but you're hoping it's not too long.
There's not been a time frame, but he's been in training for about 2 weeks now, so you're just hoping that maybe against Livingston or against Betis, if he's on the bench or something, then he can come on for 20, 30 minutes. Against Livingston, he's the sort of player that I would want to be bringing on, that sort of guy that thrives on playing on a terrible pitch, you would think. Sort of a big, tall, 6 foot hard man that will just put himself about.
Climb over players.
We've needed a plan B in the team, and it looks as if he will be that sort of plan B that will sort of force the issue on terrible pitches and sort of more physical games. So he's a guy that I want to see in and around the first team very, very soon.
Yeah, I would like to see him. I'm looking forward to that different option that we could get in. Because, you know, it's interesting. It's nice to see what we can maybe do to change things about. AGSC Technology Videos asks, Ryan McGinley, what free SPF? Right, if you would pick one player from this season thus far, who would you pick? Because I think I know who I'd take. I'd take that wee Ramsey for Aberdeen. If I was to pick anybody based off the start of the season.
Yeah, he looks absolutely class. I don't know if I would take him, but I want to just acknowledge that Van Veems had a great start from Motherwell as well. He's looking like an inspired signing for Graham Alexander, who's also had a really, really great start to the season. Motherwell in general have been really, really good, and they deserve to be where they are at the moment. But in terms of talents, I mean, Ramsey definitely. I think the two fullbacks that Aberdeen have got have been really good. They've been sort of the bright spark of their season, because Aberdeen really have not started well this season. So it looks like the youth are the only positive at this moment in time.
Lewis Laird, he asks, Ralston or Juranovic on Thursday, Ryan, as we head, of course, to Seville, as we spoke about just shortly ago? That doesn't make any sense. Not long ago, we spoke about that. Who would you start, Ralston or Juranovic?
Juranovic, isn't it? It's got to be Juranovic. And that sounds terrible to Ralston, but
I keep explaining myself and saying, look, listen, it's nothing against Ralston. It's nothing to suggest that Ralston's not good enough. No. He's had a great start. I appreciate that. His chances will continue to come. He'll get chances. They will come in again for him.
Both could play. If Juranovic plays at left back.
Suppose, yeah.
I don't really want Juranovic to be playing out of position. I think he's a guy that you want to play in his preferred position, and he became a bit predictable against Rangers because you knew he was going to cut in every single time. And I thought he had a mixed game on Saturday. I thought first half he was okay, second half he just didn't seem to get going whatsoever. But I'm not worried about him whatsoever. I know he'll be a great player for Celtic.
And that's us about to hit the 1 hour mark. So I guess that is where we can call it the end of the show. It's been a belter, Ryan. We've got so much to talk about over the next few weeks ahead of the next international break, so we'll try and pack it all in. But thank you for joining us for this live edition of the podcast. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments if you can, whether you're watching live or you're not. It will be up to you. If you have missed any for the show, you can go back and watch it from the start. You'll get it to Spotify later on tonight as well, so don't worry about it whatsoever. You'll be able to catch it. Ryan, do you enjoy that, mate?
I did, yeah. Apart from the start where I was having to talk about board, the hierarchy and the board and stuff that I'm just not entirely comfortable about talking about, just because I don't really know a lot about the board and the way it runs and things. I try and focus on the football more than anything else. But do you know, it was good to cover different topics. I just wish we were in the studio, but obviously we couldn't manage due to constraints. But at the same time, we made it work, even although we had the technical difficulties, and I think we put out a decent show.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, lads, make sure to go and follow both of us on Twitter. Make sure to follow at Sellik Podcast on Twitter as well. We will be back, hopefully, over the next wee while to talk about everything else that is Celtic related. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. See you all. Make sure I click the right one here next time.